Hello everyone, welcome back to From a Biblical Perspective with Sabriel Jemison. I'm your host, Sabriel Jemison, and today I kind of threw this together last minute because it was something that was really weighing on my heart and that I have been thinking about a lot lately, especially while I'm scrolling on social media or looking at other Bible-related things and other Christian creators. And I'm noticing something that I think needs to be addressed more, that I think needs to be made more clear, especially in the Christian community. And before I say anything else, I did want to tell you, yes, this video is going to be about modesty. It is going to be about biblical modesty, but my little disclaimer here is that modesty is subjective. I know that, and there are going to be some things that I say in this video that you may not agree with, and that is perfectly okay for the most part. I say for the most part because there are some things that I'm going to say that are 100% biblically backed, but there's no specific dress code that the Lord gives us, and personal convictions are real things, and those are things that you should pay attention to, and this is all going to be up to your own interpretation and your own uses in your life. So I wanted to talk about 3 basic truths and 3 basic things about modesty. And just to start off, modesty is biblical. This is something that so many people discount, so many people discard it, so many people will even glaze over the verses that I'm going to say or not interpret them correctly. Now, the biggest verse that people go to when they are trying to make a distinction between whether modesty means for your dress code or whether modesty means for your heart or what modesty really means is 1 Timothy 2:9, which talks about women adorning themselves in modest apparel. And it does specifically address women in this, but later on I'm also going to talk about modesty for men as well. And this verse is often misinterpreted as meaning something that has to do with not having pride in what you wear and not being arrogant and not being flaunting, which is true, but the word modest is chosen for a very specific reason, and the word modest is used in almost every translation that exists, and that is not something that can be said for every other verse that exists out there in the Bible. So knowing that is an even more of an indication for us that modest is specifically the word that is used here. And some could still argue that it means modest as in humble, it means modest as in lowly, and you can say that as well, but I think that even further supports the idea of wearing covering clothing, because if you are going to be humble and you are going to be lowly, you are not going to want to draw much attention to yourself. You're not going to want to draw people into trying to get them to be jealous of you or lust after you or things like that. So that's the first verse that I have, but I also have 1 Corinthians 16 verses 19 through 20, which talks about your body being a temple of God, and it talks about both your spirit and body working for the glory of Him and becoming that temple. It would not specifically talk about the body if it was only mentioning spiritual purity, if it was only going to talk about spiritual respect. This is talking about respect of the body as well. And if you want to just go from even a worldly standpoint of this, modesty shows a just preciousness of your own body. It shows that you are thinking deliberately about what you are wearing, and it communicates a lot of self-respect and a lot of maturity. It is a privacy for yourself and for a future spouse that you may have. That can be something special. There's so many things that the world especially does not consider sacred for marriage and just deals out to literally anybody that can pass by and look at you or talk to you or wants to date you. And then what is there that's left for marriage? This is why the Lord talks to us a lot about sexual purity. He talks to us about our dress. He talks to us about our conduct. The differences between what someone who's married gets to have and someone who's not married doesn't get to have. And we can keep that with the way that we dress as well. Why would you also want to tempt people on purpose? We can talk about lust, we can talk about jealousy, we can talk about rage, envy. There's a lot of things that it can invoke into other people when you are dressing immodestly, when you are trying to draw attention to yourself. There's no reason for you to be doing that. And the biggest argument people make is saying, oh, well, I'm doing it for myself. I just want to look nice, and I want to look great, and I want to think I'm pretty. Okay, you can do that also while wearing modest clothing. If you have to show a lot of your skin to feel like you respect yourself and to feel confident about yourself, that is not a clothing problem. That is a heart problem. That is a problem with you loving yourself. It is not a problem of what I wear or don't wear is going to make me feel that way. And you can even do that in the privacy of your own home. If you think that's going to give you more confidence, if you lack confidence and you think it would give you better positivity about your looks, you can do that in your own home if you feel that need. If you really were doing it just for yourself, you would just do it in your own home. And there's a lot of other ways that we can feel beautiful. It does not have to be because we are showing the most skin or because we are wearing the most flaunting, dazzling thing. That is not what self-respect or self-love is about. And people twist that so easily. The second point that I want to make is that modesty is not just for women. This is something that I think a lot of Christian creators will not speak about, and I find it a very just irritating. I'm going to be honest. I find it very irritating because I see things all the time, specifically men, when they are making videos about modesty. And surely, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not good Christian men or that they're thinking about it in this way, but it communicates this sense of superiority and this sense of partiality that God does not have. God does not have double standards for anybody at all. We are all supposed to honor each other. We are all supposed to love each other. We are all supposed to respect each other. And that is the root of so many of the commandments that God gives us. And women can also lust too. If you want to root it back to consequences and the reason why we do these things that isn't just for ourselves, the reason of dressing modestly that is also for other people, women can lust too. It's not just men. And God shows no partiality. Like I was saying, if he's going to command something for one person, he's going to command it of the other in some way, shape, or form. And this also shows respect for a future wife. I was speaking about future spouse earlier because this can be for your husband and for your wife. It doesn't matter who you are. This is about respecting yourself, respecting others, respecting your future, and honoring the commands that God has given you. The next point that I want to make, this is the third and final point that I'm going to talk about before I share my personal tips and my personal guidelines for myself and the way that I determine something as modest or not. This final point is that your heart and what you're wearing matter, because people want to argue. I say that a lot in this video, but people want to argue a lot of things. People want to argue that it's your heart that matters and that, oh, well, I'm wearing a bikini, but I'm not actually thinking about attention from others, so it's okay. No, that's not true. And what I mean by your heart and your dress really is that you can be wearing the most modest thing, you can be covering all of yourself, but the way that you are acting and the things that you are saying and the things that you are pursuing are not modest. They are not pure. They are not showing this respect for yourself and for others. I have seen this in so many different ways. There's people who can wear the most modest thing that I have seen be so impure in so many ways in their conduct. And it can be the other way around as well. If you are just a very kind person, you're a very humble person, you're very serving, you're very kind and respectful, but you're not dressing correctly, the message is not going to be sent. You have to have both. That is the point that I'm trying to make here. So here's some personal tips that I have to decide if something that I'm wearing is actually modest. And I'm not going to say it's easy because it's definitely not. There have been certain periods in my life where it was harder or easier than other times, but especially when you're growing up and you want to fit in with everybody around you. But that is kind of the point of being a Christian. We stand out. We have a higher calling. We are walking the narrow path. Few are those who find it. We are not going to be like everybody else. And if you are like the majority, you're probably doing something wrong. And I think that can be said for other things other than just modesty. But there are ways that you can still dress fashionably. There are ways you can still wear what is fun, but that doesn't mean that you have to be immodest about it. The first thing that I have that I always keep in my closet is just like t-shirts. I wear lots of t-shirts. This is the biggest thing, is just wear t-shirts. It's very simple, it's very casual, it's always in style, and more often than not, it's modest, and that's what we do around here. T-shirts. I always wear jeans all the time. I wear jeans in the summer, in the winter, in the spring, in the fall, all the time. But jorts, those are modest. Jorts are modest. You can wear joggers, those like sweatpants, athletic pants, leggings are fine. I think personally for myself, most of the time, as long as you're not wearing like something that's super short as your top, because leggings are very, very tight. So, there's that. Also, you can make anything modest with layering. Layering is your best friend. There's a lot of shirts that I have that I will wear a cardigan over, or I'll wear a button-up over, or, things like that. And that's fun, right? But my closet mostly consists of like dress pants, dresses, t-shirts, sweaters, and jeans. And those are more often than not perfectly fine. And you can find modest clothes. They're definitely out there. You might have to do some searching, especially online, but there are plenty of brands that sell modest clothing, even if they are not specifically made for modest clothing, So those are my biggest things with that, but if you have more questions about that, feel free to ask in the comments. I will see if I can get back to you about that. Now some personal tips and ideas that I have for myself when I'm trying to decide if something is modest is, first of all, would I wear this if Jesus was in the room? Because guess what? He is. He's looking at you. He's watching what you decide to wear in the morning. He's watching you, and he's going to see if you're choosing something because you think this is going to honor him and honor yourself, or if you're choosing this for attention or because you want to fit in, or whatever the other reason is, right? Would you wear this in front of Jesus? Because guess what? He's right there. Also, another thing is, why am I wearing this? That's the other question that I ask myself when I'm not quite sure, Also, a good indicator is if you're not quite sure, because most of the time, if you're not sure, it means it's not good. So you can think that way too. But I'll think, why am I wearing this? Am I wearing this because I want to wear it? Am I wearing this because I think that it's cute? Am I wearing this because I want people to stare at me? Am I wearing this for attention? Why am I wearing this? Another thing that is good to think is to just lay out some ground rules for yourself. And I'm not saying that these are the rules that you must abide by, but these are rules that I have. I will not wear anything that goes higher than a little bit above my knees. I won't wear anything that goes lower than right where the line of below my shoulder is. I don't wear off the shoulder things. Just set those ground rules for yourself. And if you're new to all of this, it might be easier to literally write it down, look at it every morning, go through your closet, pick out those things that you think are going along with these questions that you ask yourself. Okay, yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. So, think about those things very deeply. And another thing that you can ask, which this one is very serious and something that you really have to reflect on yourself about, is, would you be okay with someone else wearing this in front of your brother in Christ, or your actual brother, or your actual father, or somebody that is close to you that you don't want them to be led into sin. You don't want them to be led into lust. You don't want to even open that door for them. Would you want someone to wear that in front of them? That's another one that I think can also be asked. And these are things that you really have to open your heart to, because I know that it's hard, and I know there's people who are telling you it doesn't matter, who are telling you that it's fine, but I am here to tell you that it's not fine, and God doesn't think it's fine. And even if you want to say that that's not what that verse means, that none of this is true, why not? Why not better safe than sorry? Okay, these things that people are so divisive about and so hesitant about, why not better safe than sorry? Okay, it's not worth your eternity. It's really not. Wearing a bikini is not worth spending eternity in hell. It's not. It's not. And I saw a video recently that I have to share the thoughts of, because it really encouraged me even more to make this video. It was talking about how people will be so quick to wear a bikini, but then they don't want to like wear their bra and underwear outside their house, and it's like, what's the difference? What's the difference? There is no difference, okay? It's a trick question. There's no difference. There's zero difference. And the thing that society wants to tell you is that there's a difference. Society wants to tell you that, oh, it's only my heart that matters. Society wants to tell you that this whole thing doesn't matter. It's not true. And I think it is worth noting that the majority of society does not practice modesty. And it is worth noting at the same time that Jesus calls us to be different from our culture. Jesus calls us to be separate from the world. And that can even be another reason that you do this. We want to stand out as separate from the world. And it's just another thing that can bring people to asking you, hey, why do you dress like that? Why do you wear this? Why do you not wear this? You know, and it can bring people to learning more about God just like that, just by what you're wearing. And it can become very obvious very quickly. When you see people who wear certain things, you think certain things about them. You just do. That is part of life. That is part of assumptions. And that can go for when you see people who dress modestly. When I see people who dress modestly, I think, wow, they must have a lot of respect for themselves. They must be very confident in themselves. They must be very humble of a person, you know, things like that. And not all those things could be true, but it shows so much class. It shows so much just self-respect that I think we can all develop and learn from. So those are the thoughts that I have about that, and thank you so much for listening. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I hope that these things really touched your heart, and I hope that you will do some reflecting with God as you get to go throughout the rest of your day, as you go throughout the rest of your week. You can think about these things, you can ask Him about these things, especially if you are hesitant about these things being true or about how you should go about changing the way that you dress. And you can bring those things to Him, and He will reveal that to you. If you ask, you shall receive. And I just want you to think about these things as you go about your day. Thank you so much once again for watching, and have an amazing rest of your week. God loves you.